In Ohio, the fight is on to make marijuana legal. Come November, you will have the chance to vote on a proposed constitutional amendment by saying yes or no to medical and recreational weed. That's why I traveled to Colorado to see legalization's impact on that state and what it looks like there. Our high-stakes series of stories will run through Friday. We begin tonight right here at home with a look at the local movement and what it wants. If Responsible Ohio came with a musical score, this is what it would sound like. The people who run the well-oiled machine.
This ain't your granddaddy's hippie campaign.
At the Columbus Mansion turned headquarters on Broad Street, sorted and double-checked.
It's an incredibly detailed process.
Are stacks like this every day, constantly?
Every day.
Tens of thousands of petitions.
Who's ready to turn up today? Yeah! Yeah, yeah!
Petitions other members of the team took to the public in a hard-charging ground game.
Every day I go out and I try to talk to people about how important this is.
With one endgame goal, to legalize marijuana in Ohio.
It's bigger than just people getting high. People do need it. I just feel like we should have the choice to choose for ourselves, man.
Yes, sir.
Medical use motivates more than a few in this group. And there are people here hoping to change the law so weed convictions can't keep someone down.
Can't get licenses to drive a car. Takes away financial aid to students to go to college.
Or put someone behind bars. It is all part of the pro-legalization conversation brought to you, the voter, by Responsible Ohio Executive Director and political consultant Ian James. He wants you to think about how marijuana works here right now.
We've got a cartel that operates today in an open-air pharmacy system.
One he says that's unregulated, so users don't know what they're buying, how strong it is, or what's in it, like pesticides.
For a lot of the drug dealers, it's about cash, not conscience.
That would change, he says, with legalization.
I believe that we have structured the most professional and tightest regulatory system for marijuana legalization in the country.
The big money proposition calls for 10 grow operations. Critics have called a monopoly, but that James claims would make it easier for Ohio to keep tabs on production and quality. It would okay medical and recreational use, the first to do both simultaneously. And in a state that has 190 Starbucks locations, sometimes it feels like there's one on every other corner, the ballot initiative would allow for up to 1,100 retail marijuana stores across Ohio that would sell weed in its many forms to anyone 21 and over. Is there not going to be a black market for anyone under 21?
I believe that the black market, like bootlegging of alcohol, will likely continue to exist, but you can smother it. You can force it into a position where it has very limited opportunities.
But the Drug-Free Action Alliance says making marijuana legal would come with consequences.
Anytime you increase access and availability and the perception that it's not harmful, then it does go up.
If use is her concern, the proposed number of marijuana grow operations is Representative Mike Curtin's worry. Responsible Ohio wants to write those 10 we mentioned into the state constitution. Curtin calls that a monopoly.
Voters should look at the time-honored adage, follow the money. And if you follow the money, you'll see this is all about money. It's all about monopoly. It's all about special interest. Marijuana just happens to be the commodity.
And we should point out, legislators have an initiative on the ballot that would ban writing any more monopolies into the Constitution. Now, if both initiatives pass, that the anti-monopoly amendment gets more votes, it would trump legalization. Responsible Ohio says if demand required writing more grow operations into the Constitution, you could amend it further. One more point. We mentioned the number of pot stores legalization would allow. Now, those would be subject to local approval. Tomorrow at 5:45, we go to Colorado to see retail stores there as high stakes continues. High stakes. All week, we're taking a look at what legalizing marijuana in Ohio could mean for you and your family. It will be on the ballot in November. An overall yes vote would allow for potentially 1,100 pot shops across the state with local control, and that's certainly more than the 467 liquor retail locations here. I met a local dad who wants in on the retail marijuana business. He went to Colorado for ideas. Seth Gray makes high-end leather bags.
Do you love it?
I love it.
But he's considering a major entrepreneurial change. If weed becomes legal in Ohio for the 21 and over crowd, this Delaware dad, and you're a father of 4,
I'm a father of 4,
wants to get in line to own a pot retail store.
I see a fantastic opportunity to serve a market that's not served right now.
Do you see money? Do you see dollar signs?
I wouldn't do it if I didn't think so, sure.
Pinning hopes on the possibility Ohio will be the first state in the Midwest to legalize recreationally, Seth went to Colorado to take a look at stores. We did too. We found something similar to what he described at Good Chemistry, a place that looks like the Apple Store in Whole Foods had a baby.
We're demystifying cannabis is what we're doing. We don't want people coming in and feeling like a criminal when they walk through the door.
Just the opposite. It's brightly lit, sophisticated, what you might call high-end. As you walk in, a sign says, "Making life better." It breaks pot into 4 categories: relaxation, relief, sleep, and stimulation.
What is relaxation like? What strains? What else is underneath that category?
You can research product on these iPads, and bartenders are trained to know their stuff.
We clearly have products for this subculture, if you will, but we are doing product development right now that will hopefully attract into the mainstream.
To respect privacy, Good Chemistry wouldn't let us show their customers, but I can tell you, having watched people come into the store, they looked a lot like the cross-section of people you see in this picture.
People who are willing to pay up to $240 an ounce. It's why this place takes security seriously. Stats show the cash-only marijuana business attracts crime. So CEO Matthew Huron has a cinder block and metal sheet reinforced storage room, and that's not all.
We count how many cameras just in this room alone?
This room has 4 cameras. The entire facility has 75 cameras.
75. How many square feet?
3,600 square feet.
The marijuana it sells comes from the Good Chemistry grow operation.
People like to say the sea of green is a yellow brick road to a pot of gold. But is it?
It is not an easy path. It is a very long path.
Duncan Cameron,
I'm a plant guy,
took us on a tour of the warehouse where farm meets lab under a microscope.
Everything that we do is under the eyes of the state.
He says Colorado tracks every marijuana plant from garden to sale. You can see the tagging system.
Have you guys had regulators come and knock on your door?
We have.
You have?
Yes.
Frequently?
No.
No.
Thank goodness. No,
but you know they're watching.
They are watching.
They'd also be watching from farm to store in Ohio. The regulation prevents, in Cameron's words, a wild west of weed in a business that has its challenges. Federally, marijuana is illegal, which makes working with federally regulated banks on things like loans tough.
Even though people think that we're making tons of money, you see all this weed, we dump that back into the business. I drive a Subaru. I rent a house. There's some blood on the streets for people who thought they were going to be rich, and it didn't work out for them.
So, entrepreneur beware.
That's right.
Seth Gray in Ohio knows the risks, but like the good medicine guys, sees the potential rewards.
So let's get it done. It's time.
Industry experts say banking is key to making the pot business easier. As more states legalize, some are expecting federally regulated banks to ease up a little bit. Meantime, investment groups play a role. As for the store count in Colorado, Denver County alone has 212 stores selling marijuana. How many inspectors? Check out Denver by the Numbers in my Web Extra. And join us tomorrow for a look at the economic impact of legalizing marijuana. That's tomorrow at 5:45.
And Colorado is joining other states with this, right?
Oh, yeah. There are a number of other states. What makes us unusual, what makes Ohio unusual, pursuing both simultaneously, recreational and medicinal. In fact, if it happened here, it would be a first in the states.
All right, thank you.
In the 1800s, the Colorado mountains lured people hoping to strike it rich with gold. These days, gold isn't the color of money. Green is, as in weed green. In our 6-part series, High Stakes, Legalizing Marijuana in Ohio, we traveled to check out stores and grow facilities trying to cash in. And today, we're looking at what pot means for a state's economy and the business climate. In June, Colorado surpassed $50 million in pot business in 1 month for the first time ever. But it's been slower getting there, and it has its critics.
As the cars roll by,
It's a lot more busier.
It occasionally wafts out of the windows and into the open air.
Oh yeah, you smell it.
Do you smell
oh
it
yeah.
right now?
Oh, I
I
smell
it now.
I smell it anytime I walk out my house. You're constantly thinking there's a skunk in the neighborhood, but there's not.
Nope, that's the smell of marijuana, and it's why Denver's Broadway has a nickname.
They call it the Green Mile.
Alan Dryskowski has lived in the neighborhood 17 years. He's watched as the money marijuana brings has motivated a metamorphosis.
Folks here say this corridor, which used to be a strip of antique shops, went to pot. In just a one-block stroll of what they call the Green Mile, we saw the Walking Raven, a place called the Little Brown House, and a cut above, excellence in cannabis.
Right here, you got three. You got one there, you got one there, and you got one here.
Responsible Ohio says successful pot shops can be like mini pots of gold for any state that legalizes.
It's a plant. Let's regulate it. Let's test it. Let's tax it.
Those last three words,
let's tax it,
is where government makes money. Responsible Ohio predicts if marijuana gets the nod, the Buckeye State stands to rake in $554 million on weed every year starting in 2020. According to Colorado's marijuana czar,
my job requires me to be a marijuana agnostic.
His state, with half Ohio's population, made less than that from pot in 1 year.
So we brought in $68 million over the first fiscal year. And when you take out other expenses that, paying for marijuana enforcement division to be able to regulate marijuana, when you take out highway safety, we have new drug recognition experts. We have somewhere between $25 to $40 million each year to spend on school construction, which isn't nothing, but it's about one school.
That's there. Here in Ohio, it would cover roads, literally pot for potholes, bridge repair, safety services, and economic development. And then there are the jobs, from growers to gardeners to handlers to retailers.
You're talking about tens of thousands of jobs.
In 2014, Colorado tracked 14,000 occupational licenses. That's just in the first year. And marijuana did $700 million in commerce. But is pot pushing out traditionally reputable business?
There's certainly a fair amount of that has gone on, but a lot of that is...
A fair amount of what that's gone on?
Of replacing other businesses that would otherwise be there.
This used to be a car lot. That used to be a car lot. That used to be a car lot. No longer, now they're pot shops.
That brings us back to Alan.
We got a lot of traffic that we didn't have.
On the Green Mile, where he says on top of more marijuana, more traffic, and that smell of skunk, some customers are taking advantage of the people who call this neighborhood home.
They steal bikes and whatever else they can get their hands on, and they go and sell it, and then they come back to the dispensaries.
To his point, though pot was just 1.4% of Denver's overall crime in 2014, burglary and attempted burglary amounted to 78% of the city's marijuana-related crime. Join us tomorrow as I look into medical marijuana. Some Ohio parents say their children need it to live. And go to 10tv.com to watch the first two parts of my series, which covered Responsible Ohio's plan, critics' concerns, and how retail stores and grow operations work. High stakes, legalizing marijuana in Ohio. Tonight we're talking about weed intended for medical use. When I went to Colorado, I learned that state taxes the 110,000 medical users less. Most of the people on the registry are men and the average age is 41. But some of the people really pushing for it in Ohio had to ask themselves, who would give marijuana to a kid? That's because they're parents.
I can see where she just had a seizure right there, but
she did.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that?
When she fell forward.
Heather Benton tracks the moments her daughter's brain convulses.
Seizures are a very tough game to play.
With this device.
It's 9:45 in the morning, and the clicker shows that Addie has had 2 seizures. Before the Bentons moved here to Colorado, they say this clicker would have shown about 30 seizures by this time in the morning.
And 100 by the end of the day. For Addie, FDA-approved drugs alone weren't working.
You want your milk? Addison, you want your milk?
Her parents watched and worried.
How much longer can you go on living like this? Or even if you keep living like this, what kind of life are you going to have when her brain is just so beat up that she can't even remember where her nose is? We just knew that we needed to make a change. We needed to do something, put her interests first.
That meant leaving everything they loved in Ohio and making that move to Colorado, where they can legally give addies something they couldn't in the Buckeye State.
We put it on her wrist.
Marijuana products like this THC lotion.
It does not make her high, but it kind of mellows her brain out.
And these transdermal patches.
She's on 1/6 of a THCA patch, and she's on 1/8 of a THC patch.
They shouldn't be locked out of this treatment option by the state that they live in or by their zip code.
Joel Stanley is the co-founder of the Realm of Caring. The foundation started when his family discovered a non-psychoactive hemp oil they produced.
So this is where, for some people, miracles are stored.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Actually helped a child who had life-altering and threatening seizures. Her name is Charlotte.
She's ground zero. And she's super, super special to us here.
He says with the oil that bears her name, Charlotte's condition radically improved. The word got out, and the community of medical marijuana refugees was born.
Nothing's going to keep me from saving her life. And, you know, I'd go to the ends of the earth.
Paula Lozikamp-Lyles, who used to call Upper Arlington, then Cleveland, home, found a Colorado address.
It wasn't okay for me to do it illegally. That's too much risk. I mean, it's a federal offense. You would go to jail.
So her ailing daughter, Jordan,
But this is the face of cannabis. This is her.
could try the oil and other products. Right now, she says canna butter is what's keeping Jordan's seizures at bay.
How do you know how much to give Jordan? Again, trial and error.
Dosage is an issue. It frustrates Stanley that limited testing on the federally banned plant means it's a guessing game on how much to give and why.
This works for a lot of people, but it doesn't work for everyone.
And that fuels critics' arguments that anecdotal evidence is driving marijuana remedies. But for Paula, it's the real deal.
It's not a placebo effect. I mean, I see it every day. I see it right before my eyes. I live with her.
Dr. William Abraham at the OSU Wexner Medical Center says not so fast. He questions pot as medicine.
It has effects on the brain or the central nervous system. And from my standpoint as a cardiologist, it has important effects on the heart. For example, it causes racing of the heart. So if one wants to promote marijuana as a medical and medicinal agent, it should be subjected to the same sorts of rigorous studies that we subject other medications to.
Addie has been on some of those medications.
She looked like a different child. She looked high all the time. She was very confused, very lethargic.
That's not her now, and it's one reason the Bentons want medical marijuana in Ohio.
We want nothing more than to see it pass. We want nothing more to be able to come home and have Addison have access to medication.
The FDA cautions using marijuana as medicine doesn't make it medicine. Complicating research, the fact it's a Schedule I drug, but efforts are underway to change that. And there are some clinical trials right now. One involves a cannabis oil for seizures. The Journal of the American Medical Association just published a report about marijuana that found some but limited benefit for patients. We'll link you to it from my story on 10tv.com. And tomorrow at 5:45, law enforcement's take on what they call the unintended consequences of legalizing. If you are 21 or older in Colorado, you can buy marijuana for recreational use, but you cannot smoke it out in the open in restaurants, bars, or hotel rooms. That has given rise to private smoking clubs. Nothing in the law there allows for the clubs, but you know what? Nothing bans them either. It is a side effect of legalization, one critics say Ohio should think about. I visited one right across the street from a neighborhood in Colorado Springs as part of our High Stakes series.
Welcome to the Pothole Cannabis Club.
What is a cannabis club?
Basically a weed bar, if you will. It's a place, a private club where people can come after a long day of work or whenever they feel like it and come and smoke weed with like-minded individuals.
It's for members only.
Reception area.
Who pay $5 to belong. They also sign over the rights to the recreational marijuana plants they get under Colorado law. The Pothole grows them for its loyal to the leaf crowd.
Wow.
And when they meet,
He's smoking weed and eating ice cream.
they indulge
Only way.
together.
Hey, cameraman, you want to hit?
Is it a respectful environment?
Absolutely. I think more respectful than any bar I've ever been in, certainly.
Owner Gabriel Pieper.
Is this your dream come true?
More or less, yeah, it is.
Says he designed the place to feel like a hangout. down to the foosball table he enjoys, with a joint tucked behind his ear.
It's surreal to have come this far from prohibition to it being so taboo and illegal and wrong to a place where it's like water, where you can come in and smoke, you know, with your friends.
On this evening,
Oh no!
some of Peeper's 1,000 members were playing smoker poker.
That's a full house. That's a full house.
For this hazy game, weed was on the table with the chips.
For folks sitting at home in Ohio watching this saying, that is so wrong, why is it right to you?
It should be our right as human beings to do what we want, as long as we're not hurting someone else.
When they leave here, do they drive?
A lot of our members live in the neighborhood, so they walk.
Do you worry about impaired driving?
Personally, I feel that it's not as big a concern as some people would have you believe.
I disagree with that.
Aurora, Colorado police officer Rolando Gomez
You actually get to see people driving and smoking marijuana.
has stopped high drivers.
They also tend to be disorientated. Again, they get confused sometimes. Are they actually safe to drive a car? No, they're not.
His department points to this case. A woman who had pot in her car and admitted to smoking it.
She was intoxicated with 35 nanograms.
Ran a red light and hit a pickup truck. The crash killed the other driver. Cases like it raise questions for the executive director of Ohio's high-intensity drug trafficking area program.
Is it good to have things out there that impair people even further than the things that we have put out in society, such as alcohol? Is it a healthy thing to be doing? You know, really, what is its impact on our society and on our youth and their development?
Peeper at the Pothole says kids don't get into his club and the law works to keep marijuana out of their hands. But that doesn't prevent them from finding pot on the black market in a climate where, in a critic's words,
the perception of harm and danger becomes less when it's legal.
You think this opens up the floodgates?
Oh, absolutely.
That last comment was from Ohio's HIDA counterpart in Colorado, who takes us through some of the statistics they have compiled since marijuana became legal. We're talking about effects on kids, schools, the roads, and hospitals. I'll also speak with the state's marijuana czar, who challenges those stats. That's tomorrow at 5:45. And if you're curious about info on public pot use violations in Denver, I've attached those stats to this story at 10tv.com. High stakes, legalizing marijuana in Ohio. For this last story, we took a look at cannabis and we asked, what are the societal side effects? The answers we got depended on who we were speaking with and how they interpreted the numbers.
We're going to show you guys how many drug categories are not going to show impairment.
This class at the Columbus Police Academy is for cops who want to become drug recognition experts. Ohio has more than 100 DREs statewide.
Is 100 enough?
100's not enough, in my opinion, and that's only my opinion. I'd like to see more. We recognize that if marijuana is legalized, the frequency of drug-impaired driving could increase.
Police here are watching what's been happening on the roads in Colorado, where people have been able to smoke pot recreationally for almost 2 years now. Rocky Mountain HIDA Director Tom Gorman
Here's DUIDs of Colorado State Patrol.
has been tracking the impact reefer could be having on the roads.
Here's where the weed stats could be telling an emerging story. Gorman says in 2014, marijuana was to blame for almost half of the Highway Patrol's cases of driving under the influence of drugs or DUIDs. But here's the catch. There's nothing to compare that figure to because this is the first year they've tracked it. In the Mile High City, though, Gorman says there is a comp. Police saw a 100% increase in DUIDs involving weed. The case numbers jumped from 33 to 66.
Maybe 66 is not a lot, but it's double what you had in 13. And it's higher than you've had in previous years. Is that an indicator you may be having a problem with marijuana intoxication?
The state's marijuana czar says at this point, not necessarily.
In the short term, the sky has not fallen in Colorado. Public health, public safety, youth use that you can point to have been generally flatlined to this point.
But Gorman says his numbers show in 2013, Colorado's average past month youth use outpaced the national average. Youth use is a concern for physicians.
When the brain is still forming, it can alter brain architecture or connections in a way that may have adverse effects for the future in terms of thinking and memory.
And then there are drug-related suspensions. Gorman pointed to a graph that shows they also climbed. The marijuana czar, though, questions stats he says measured for all drug use, not just marijuana.
But all the interviews we've done and administrators admit that it's almost all marijuana.
So both agree to disagree except about one point. They each say a significant spike in marijuana-related hospital stays and ER visits is at the very least something to watch.
As a medical provider, it's something that's impacted my practice in the emergency department. I'm seeing patients with new complaints, things that we didn't see before.
Like kids coming in who've gotten into marijuana edibles.
Well, the children present very sleepy, they're confused, they can't walk.
And adults, many visiting the state, who've taken in way too much THC.
Most of them present with some type of anxiety.
Would you say that the spike in marijuana-related emergency department visits is alarming, concerning? How would you quantify it?
It's something that people need to be aware of. It does carry a medical burden. Society's just going to have to decide if that medical burden is worth the perceived benefits of making marijuana available.
Responsible Ohio's Ian James says the benefits of bringing marijuana out of the shadows and into the light of legality are many.
The failure comes in just continuing to stick our heads in the sand and pretending like what we're doing is working.
If we could get alcohol use down to where illegal drug use is, we'd be celebrating victory. So why is it we think the drug wars fail?
As Ohio considers marijuana legalization, youth use is a concern. Responsible Ohio says under its plan, marketing to minors would be prohibited and retailers would be forbidden from selling to anyone under 21. It would be jail for sale for anyone who broke the rule. I invite you to watch my 6-part series, High Stakes. The stories look at everything from medical marijuana to weed shops to how legal pot is playing in Colorado as a gauge for what perhaps to expect here. And if you'd like to see the Rocky Mountain HIDA study on the impact there, just click on the link in the story at 10tv.com.